A man who has never gone to school may steal a freight car. But if he has a university education, he may steal the whole railroad. You begin saving the world by saving one man at a time. All else. Grandiose, romanticism or politics. The really great men must, I think, have great sadness on earth. A person must dream in order to see the meaning of life. Perhaps the most tragic thing about mankind is that we are all dreaming about some magical garden over the horizon, instead of enjoying the roses that are right outside today. Anyone looking for evidence of infidelity? Hopes not to find it. Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is. There is no fear of death for one who is not filled with desires. A leader is a dealer in hope. We lavish gifts upon children. But the most precious gift, our personal association, which means so much to them. We give grudgingly. You should leave the soldiers win the battle. And the general gets the honors. Give a man power, and you will find out who he is. Choose rather to be strong of soul than strong of body. When the word does not strike, then the stick will not help either. One's salvation could only be brought about through his own efforts. Not what we have, but what we enjoy constitutes our abundance. Happy marriage is a long conversation, which always seems too short. He who thinks half-heartedly will not believe in God, but he who really thinks has to believe in God. And doing something, do it with love, or never do it at all. To save all we must risk all. Plan for what is difficult while it is easy. Do what is great while it is small. The daemon of sexuality approaches our soul as a serpent. The people to fear are not those who disagree with you, but those who disagree with you and are too cowardly to let you know. To appreciate a pie, you need to taste it. Not look at the recipe. A true man hates no one. Beauty has no obvious use. Nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it. Yet, civilization could not do without it. Be equally indifferent to blame and praise. The first condition of understanding a foreign country is to smell it. You don't develop courage by being happy in your relationships every day. You develop it by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity. The less money a person has, the more his heart is. To love another person is to see the face of God. If you want to build a socialism, choose a country that you don't care for. It is easy to fall in love. The hard part is finding someone to catch you. Know yourself, and you will win all battles. Being in love is when you want to get old with someone. When you're curious, you find lots of interesting things to do. 9 out of 10 of our happiness depends on health. Power is a drug. Whoever has tried it at least once is poisoned to buy it forever. He who possesses most must be most afraid of loss. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do. And I understand. Whether does wrong wrongs himself. Whoever does injustice does it to himself make himself evil. Don't think money does everything, or you are going to end up doing everything for money. A man who acquires the ability to take full possession of his own mind may take possession of anything else to which he is justly entitled. Nobody likes being alone that much. I don't go out of my way to make friends. That's all. It just leads to disappointment. Women make even the men more sophisticated. When someone debt-rees you, it's because it is a reflection of their character, not yours. To support mother and father, to cherish wife and children and to be engaged in peaceful occupation is the greatest blessing. It requires more courage to suffer than to die. Seeing yourself as others see us is the most salutary gift. The secret source of humor itself is not joy, but sorrow. A man only begins to be valued when he is no longer there. Man needs difficulties, they are necessary for health. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Never leave till tomorrow. That's what you can do today. There are so many women with whom you can sleep, and so few women with whom you can talk. The unhappiest man on earth is the one who has nothing to do. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. I came to Rome when it was a city of stone and left it a city of marble. Do not look for approval, except for the consciousness of doing your best. The tragedy of a person, no matter how comical, is not in his shortcomings, but rather in his merits. If a man is hiding his betrayal from you, then he still loves you. Property is not things, but thoughts. You can have things and still not be the owner. I have made it a rule never to smoke more than one cigar at a time. Astronome is only a venge covered with velvet. From era to era, one discovers the entire truth. I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies. For the hardest victory is over itself. Above all things, respect yourself. The choice of adults can be as random as the choice of toys by children. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that man, with all his noble qualities, still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. In conclusion, the arms of others either fall from your back, or they weigh you down, or they bind you fast. Curiosity is gluttony, to see is to devour. Even a victorious war is an evil that must be averted by the wisdom of the nations. Disorder came from order. Fear came from courage. Weakness came from strength. In the small matters, trust the mind, and the large ones, the heart. Two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe. If we open a quarrel between past and present, we shall find that we have lost the future. It is an acknowledged fact that we perceive errors in the work of others more readily than in our own. If you have the ability to love, love yourself first. Besides, nowadays almost people are terribly afraid of being ridiculous and are miserable because of it. A certain type of perfection can only be realized through a limitless accumulation of the imperfect. Remember, upon the conduct of each depends the fate of all. The artist management is not letting people grow old at their job. A truth is not hard to kill the light. The lie told well is immortal. People who do not want to feed their army will soon be forced to feed someone else's. Without friends, no one would want to live, even if he had all the other goods. Nothing can harm a good person, neither in life nor after death. At 20, the things for which one does not care a damn should properly be many. There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of your enemy. To put everything in balance is good, to put everything in harmony is better. Be noble-minded. Our own heart and not other men's opinions of us forms our true honor. So the unwanting soul sees what's hidden, and the ever-wanting soul sees only what it wants. If you can dream it, you can do it. He who knows all the answers has not been asked all the questions. Death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back. I don't believe in God. My God is patriotism. Teach a man to be a good citizen, and you have solved the problem of life. If it is not possible to converge closer to people, disperse further. The lot of kings is to do good and to hear bad. Virtue has never been as respectable as money. The interpretation of dreams is the royal RD of a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. It is better to act and repent than not to act at regret. Yeah, sex is cool. But have you tried solving the practice to crone problem in a single night? The education of all children from the moment that they can get along without a mother's care shall be in state institutions. Anyone who has ever looked into the glassy eyes of a soldier dying on the battlefield will think twice before starting a war. The search for something permanent is one of the deepest of the instincts leading men to philosophy. If you kept the small worlds, you could break the big ones. Beware of sugar that is mixed with poison bee. Where of the family that sat on a dead snake. The only victory over love is flight. It is not enough to win a war. It is more important to organize the peace. The action of even the smallest creature means to changes in the entire universe. Let no one delay the study of philosophy while young nor weary of it when old. Life's great happiness is to be convinced we are loved. Action expresses priorities. Laws are like sausages. It's better not to see them being made. Cherish youth, but trust old age. If a woman is angry, it means she is not only wrong, but also she knows it. That's the real problem with the world. Too many people grow up. They forget. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Shame is a soul-eating emotion. Thou shouldst eat to live, not live to eat. Wanting to work is so rare a merit that it should be encouraged. If a woman belongs to another man, she is 5 times more desirable than the one you can easily get. The only source of knowledge is. You have enemies. Good, that means you stood up for something sometime in your life. One of the greatest discoveries of man makes one of his great surprises is to find he can do what he was afraid he couldn't do. Wastes no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. It's life that matters, nothing but life. The process of discovery, the everlasting and perpetual process, not the discovery itself at all. I stood next to her. Listened to her. Laughed and thought how terrible it is to love a woman and be poor. Those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know. Past is dead, future is uncertain, present. Present is all you have. So eat, drink and live. Marry. You should be very careful not to form a very favorable opinion about a person at first acquaintance. Otherwise, in most cases, you will have to be disappointed. A man's face is his autobiography. A woman's face is her work of fiction. If you think you can do a thing, or think you can't do a thing, you're right. Bad taste creates many more millionaires than good taste. This is my last message to you in sorrow. Seek happiness. 90% of all millionaires become so through owning real estate. What a terrible thing it is to own someone you really care for and to do it so unconsciously. In order not to cheat on the husband, the wife must change. And so that the wife does not cheat, the husband should not change. There is nothing more slavish than luxury, and nothing more regal than labor. Wealth is not in the possession of treasures, but in the ability to use them. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Inventors don't have time for married life. It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. Wrong does not cease to be wrong, because the majority share in it. Student is not a container you have to fill, but a torch you have to light up. The demand for certainty is one, which is natural to man, but is nevertheless an intellectual vice. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I have got a hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. An honest man in politics shines more than he would elsewhere. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare, there are no constant conditions. If a lady says no, it means maybe. If she says, maybe, it means yes. If she says yes, it's not a lady. The self-assured believer is a greater sinner in the eyes of God than the troubled disbeliever. He who cannot obey himself will be commanded that. Nature of living creatures. Honesty is the best policy when there is money in it. A marriage without conflicts is almost as inconceivable as a nation without crises. Experience without theory is blind. A theory without experience is mere intellectual play. No one can construct for you the bridge upon which precisely you must cross the stream of life. No one but yourself alone. Disappointments are to the soul what a thunderstorm is to the air. Health so far outweighs all other blessings of life that a truly healthy beggar is happier than a sick king. What is the government's nothing unless supported by opinion? You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. I believe that higher wages to men who respect their employers and are happy and content are good investments. Yielding indeed, big dividends. If others would think as hard as I did, then they would. Hate the sin, love the sinner. I saw the crown of France laying on the ground, so I picked it up with my sword. Most human beings have been almost infinite capacity for taking things for granted. A leak can travel halfway around the world, while the truth is putting its shoes on. There are so many laws that no one is safe from hanging. Friends share all things. The hard work of the future will be pushing buttons. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. Don't spend money you don't have. Fashions have done more harm than revolutions. Orthodoxy means not thinking, not needing to think. Orthodoxy is unconscious. The men who have succeeded are men who have chosen one line and stuck to it. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Faith, hope, love, and insight are the highest achievements of human effort. They are found given by experience. The fact that people do not learn from the mistakes of history is the most important lesson of history. It is the little conveniences that make the real comfort of life. Put your iron hand in a velvet glove. We're all islands shouting lies to each other across seas of misunderstanding. One seeks to make the loved one entirely happy, or if that cannot be, entirely wretched. Happiness is the greatest hiding place for despair. The living. It is wrong and immoral to seek to escape the consequences of one's acts. The poet is the only true human being, and the best philosopher is only a caricature in comparison. An enemy is a friend who knows too much about you. Men always want to be a woman's first love. Women like to be a man's last romance. He who does not punish evil commands it to be done. I don't pity any man who does hard work worth doing. I admire him. I pity the creature who does not work at whichever end of the social scale he may regard himself as being. If you get married, they think you're finished, and if you are without a woman, they think you are incomplete. Criminals do not die on the hands of the law. They die by the hands of other men. The art of medicine consists of amusing the patients, while nature cures the disease. All human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes. Happiness is never there to stay. Happiness is merely a respite offered by inquietude. A person is always a little to blame for something. Never tell your enemy he is doing the wrong thing. One believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. Your parents when they are present. This is the best policy in the long run. Because if you don't, they will. They will make you. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. There is in every one of us, even those who seem to be most moderate, a type of desire that is terrible, wild, and lawless. There is nothing that could attract human attention and deserve to be a subject of study than nature. Knowing your flaws is the first step to health. Above all things, never be afraid the enemy. The enemy who forces you to retreat is himself afraid of you at that very moment. The highest, after all, is not to comprehend the highest, but to do it. The last capitalist we hang shall be the one who sold us the rope. I cannot conceive of a greater loss than the loss of one's self-respect. Freedom is a luxury that not everyone can afford. Only he who controls himself is free. Intelligence is not the ability to store information, but to know where to find it. Save when you can and not when you have to. The man who asks the question is a fool for a minute. The man who does not ask is a fool for life. All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Life's as kind as you let it be. To go wrong in one's own way is better to go right in someone else's. When fate hands us a lemon, let's try to make lemonade. The only true friend who will never betray is silence. It is in the nature of things that joy arises in a person free from remorse. To conquer a woman, one has to make her laugh. Experience is not what happens to a man. It is what a man does with what happens to him. Whatever man's age, he can reduce it by several years by putting a bright-colored flower in his buttonhole. You are not taller than me. You are longer. Public self is a conditioned construct of the inner psychological self. Mothers are fonder than fathers of their children because they are more certain. They are their own. Now don't be angry after you've been afraid. That's the worst kind of cowardice. Evil people are like flies that crawl over the human body and stop only at its ulcers. The more time and devotion one spends in the worship of false gods, a less he is able to spend in that of the true one. Nothing makes a man so adventurous as an empty pocket. I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. Only a fool craves money, a smart one craves opportunities. The win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill to subdue the enemy without fighting. Is the acme of skill. Man is reflected in his actions. A man is rational in proportion as his intelligence informs and controls his desires. There is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. It is no longer good enough to cry peace. We must act peace, live peace, and live in peace. Only when you finally part with a person, you begin to be truly interested in everything that concerns him. This is one of the paradoxes of love. Life is like riding a bicycle to keep your balance. You must keep moving. Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. So far, about morals, I only know that what is moral is what you feel good after, and what is immoral is what you feel bad after. We have two lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one. Dare to think for yourself. Do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. The ability to ask reasonable questions is a sign of intelligence and discernment. Where some saw abstraction, others saw the truth. Glory is fleeting, but obscurity is forever. A baby is an inestimable blessing and father. History is written by the winners. No grapevine has ever existed without a touch of madness. Bad people live to eat and drink. Virtuous people eat and drink in order to live. If you are angry, mentally count to 10 before you speak. If you are very angry, count to 100. Nonviolence is a weapon of the strong. Stupidity is a gift from God, but it should not be abused. Source of superstition. And one of the main sources of cruelty, geography is the beginning of wisdom. Emotion, which is suffering. Suffering ceases to be suffering as soon as we form a clear and precise picture of it. Remember your humanity? And forget the rest. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. Open reality is the worst of all evils because it prolongs the torments of man. Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. The more I realize I know nothing. There is no lonelier man in death than that man who has lived many years with a good wife and then outlived her. If two people love each other, there can be no happy end to it. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Chance encounters are what keep us going. Should you find a wise critic to point out your faults, follow him as you would a guide to hidden treasure. Human pride is not worthwhile. There is always something lying in wait to take the wind out of it. Sobriety is the strength of the soul, for it preserves its reason unclouded by passion. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought, which they seldom use. As individuals express their life, so they are. Never try to discourage thinking, for you are sure to succeed. Your worst enemy is your own nervous system at any moment. The tension inside you is liable to translate itself into some visible symptom. If you wait by the river long enough, the bodies of your enemies will float by. Be flexible. As soon as you stop being flexible, you died. Be flexible. This is a forged from metal and absolutely inflexible rule. The most flexible element gradually becomes the controlling element of the system. Time is a created thing to say, I don't have time. It's like saying, I don't want to. A fool chastens pleasure and finds disappointment, for sage only avoids grief. Happiness lies not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. The way at moral stimulation of work must no longer be forgotten in the mad chase of evanescent profits. History never repeats itself. Man always does. That yourself to what is spiritually superior regard. Regardless of what other people think or do. Hold your true aspirations no matter what is going on around you. Courage isn't having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have the strength. You must learn to forgive a man when he is in love. He is always a nuisance. It is not easy to keep silent when silence is a lie. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. Only when the last tree has been cut down the fish. The last fish been caught, and the last stream poisoned we realize we cannot eat money. In childhood be modest and youth temperate, and adulthood just hand in old age, prudent. No, that is the great fallacy, the wisdom of old men. They do not grow wise. They grow careful. There is loneliness in this world so great that you can see it in the slow movement of a clock's hand. We learn from experience that men never learn anything from experience. No man will make a great leader who wants to do it all himself or to get all the credit for doing it. Let us live so that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. Poverty is the noose that strangles humility and breathes disrespect for God and man. Flick reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward and whatever way they like. Make my enemy brave and strong, so that, if defeated, I will not be ashamed. Only those who attempt the absurd. It achieved the impossible. Never ruin an apology with an excuse. Anybody can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. Just his food eaten without appetite is a tedious nourishment. So without zeal, damage the memory by not assimilating what it absorbs. If what one has to say is not better than silence, then one should keep silent. Boredom, the desire for desires. Why should we take advice on sex from the Pope? If he knows anything about it, he shouldn't. We never live. We are always in the expectation of living. And while the law of competition may be sometimes hard for the individual, it is best for the race because it ensures the survival of the fittest in every department. You can hide memories, but you can't erase the history that produced them. The more habits, the less freedom. Know you not that a good man does nothing for appearance sake, but for the sake of having done right. Only happy love can prolong the youth of a mature man. Any other instantly turns him into an old man. The only victories which leave no regret are those which are gained over ignorance. The novelist work of God. Man, who found it out? Man, so long has been praise you. You can only be sure that you are not on your own true path, but on someone else's. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. To get married means to have your rights and double your responsibilities. This is no time for ease and comfort. It is time to dare and endure. Beware of the man who does not talk, and the dog that does not bark. Understanding a question is half an answer. Many people die at 25, and are buried until they are 75. The one is divided into two classes, those who believe the incredible and those who do the improbable. Attack the evil that is within yourself, rather than the evil that is in others. Genius might be the ability to say a profound thing in a simple way. If I say, let the world go to hell, but I should always have my tea. In war, events of importance are the results of trivial causes. To suffer unnecessarily, is masochistic, rather than heroic. Who is the rich man? He who is content. Autumn is the second spring when every leaf is a flower. Find out what a person fears most, and that is where he will develop next. Next, a journalist is a street cleaner with a pen. Grief can take care of itself, but to get full value of a joy, you must have somebody to divide it with. The greatest danger occurs at the moment of victory. What is a friend? A single soul dwelling in two bodies. Drunkenness does not give rise to vices. It reveals them. Nothing destroys a person as much as a prolonged in the action. Anyone who loves work does not need entertainment. Without a family, man alone in the world trembles with the cold. I would rather be exposed to the inconveniences attending too much liberty than to those attending too small a degree of it. There are no weeds and no worthless men. There are only bad farmers. Viva change that you wish to see in the world. Woe to the leader whose arguments at the end of a war are not as plausible as they were at the beginning. 3 things you can't get back: time, word, and opportunity. Freedom of opinion can only exist when the government thinks itself secure. There is no friend as loyal as a book. The gem cannot be polished without friction, nor man perfected without trials. We don't even ask happiness. Just a little less pain. When a stupid man is doing something he is ashamed of, he always declares that it is his duty. I came, I saw. I conquered. The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. One's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. He who is cruel to animals becomes hard, also in his dealings with men. We can judge the heart of a man by his treatments of animals. The fool is the precursor to the Savior. After silence, that which comes nearest to expressing the inexpressible is music. The more primitive a man is, the better he believes himself to be. The greatest moments in life are not concerned with selfish achievements, but rather with the things we do for the people we love and esteem, and whose respect we need. Almost all of our sorrows spring out of our relations with other people. While I thought that I was learning how to live, I have been learning how to die. It is easy to hate, and it is difficult to love. This is how the whole scheme of things works. All good things are difficult to achieve, and bad things are very easy to get. I guess the only time most people think about injustice is what it happens to them. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you have. To hold a pen is to be at war. Life all the time distracts our attention, and we do. And we do not even have time to notice from what exactly. We must not believe the many who say that only free people ought to be educated, but we should rather believe the philosophers who say that only the educated are free. Should a person do good? Let him do it again and again. Let him find pleasure therein, for blissful is the accumulation of good. Men are moved by 2 levers only: fear and self-interest. To exist because they are ignored. Nothing so needs reforming as other people's habits. The best way to keep one's word is not to give it. Some save as if they should live forever. Others spend as if they would die right away. An empty vessel makes the loudest sound. So those that have the least wit are the greatest babblers. Great moments are born great opportunity. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Don't forget to love yourself. It is run books that wise people derive consolation in the troubles of life. In politics, for the sake of a certain goal, you can make an alliance even with the devil himself. You just need to be sure that you will fool the devil and not the devil you. The moment there is suspicion about a person's motives, everything he does becomes tainted. The fool is the only one who leaves the matter halfway and looks with his mouth open from the side. What will come with all of this? You can't trust a man who has nothing to lose. When angry, count to 4. When very angry, swear. You can make a stop during the ascent, but not during the descent. Time is the soul of the world. The most stupid woman can cope with an intelligent man, and only the most intelligent can deal with the fool. The disclosure of a secret is always guilty of the one who entrusted it to another. On the secretly blushing cheek is reflected the glow of the heart. The tree of freedom needs to be watered from time to time, with the blood of patriots and tyrants. This is natural fertilizer for it. Even the darkest night will end, and the sun will rise. To my mind, the life of a lamb is no less precious than that of a human being. Always beware of building castles in the air. These buildings are the easiest to build, but the hardest to destroy. The highest activity a human being can attain is learning for understanding. Because you understand is to be free. If you want a thing done well, do it yourself. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. As soon as you awake, an order lay the actions to be done the coming day. Buy a puff, and your money will buy love unflinching that cannot lie. I believe his firm in the law of compensation. The true rewards are ever in proportion to the labor and sacrifices made. And to every action, there is always an equal and opposite or contrary reaction. The paradise of the rich is made out of the hell of the poor. Let life die. But death must not live. The greatness of humanity is not in being human, but in being humane. It is not flesh and blood, but heart, which makes us fathers and sons. Wheels of justice grind slow, but grind fine. Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Love your enemies, for they tell you your faults. The road to happiness lies in 2 simple principles. Find what it is that interests you and that you can do well. And when you find it, put your whole soul into it. Every bit of energy and ambition and natural ability you have. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. What is hell? I maintain that it is the suffering of being unable to love. You don't even need to think about your beginnings. It is necessary to get down to business. Otherwise, if you notice the difficulty, you will retreat. Sunday neurosis, that kind of depression which afflicts people who become aware of the lack of content in their lives. When the rush of the busy week is over and the void within themselves becomes manifest. A smile costs nothing but gives much. Without love, we fall ill. Are you bored with life then? Throw yourself into some work you believe in with all your heart. Live for it, die for it, and you will find happiness that you had thought could never be yours. Never get bored or cynical. Yesterday is the thing of the past. Leave nothing for tomorrow, which can be done today. A vain person should know that the good opinion of others, which he so achieves, is much easier and more true to create by silence than by talkativeness. Gorgias rightly esteemed the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees all others. Fear of death increases in exact proportion to increase in wealth. All great truths begin as blasphemies. Happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue. Everything including lies serves the truth. A true woman loves a strong man because she knows his weaknesses. She protects as much as she is protected. Often the lies that are believed become the truth. Mistakes are, after all, the foundations of truth, and if a man does not know what a thing is, it is at least an increase in knowledge if he knows what it is not. A fool has a great advantage over an educated person. He is always pleased with himself. It isn't a matter of forgetting what one has to learn is how to remember, and yet be free of the past. Who interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake? Learn silence with the quiet serenity of the meditative mind. Listen, absorb, transcribe, and transform. Genius lies in the ability to distinguish the difficult from the impossible. Create problems for yourself if it's your nature. But don't create them for others. If some persons died and others did not die, death would indeed be a terrible affliction. Do not marry after 40, because marriage is not provided by nature. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Music expresses that which cannot be put into words. And that which cannot remain silent. Shame is already a kind of revolution. If an entire nation were truly ashamed, it would be like a lion crouching down in preparation for a jump. I want freedom for the full expression of my personality. There are no bad roles for good actors. One must care about a world one will not see. The view weak when you are strong, when you are weak. The life of people devoted only to pleasure without a reason and without morality has no value. The human heart has an annoying tendency to call fate only that what surrounds you. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle the light of meaning in the darkness of mere being. Maybe this world is another planet's L. Walk lightly in the spring. Mother Earth is pregnant. What the caterpillar calls the end, the rest of the world calls a butterfly. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. When you feel discouraged, seek healing and labor. Every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future. He who can copy can do. He who flatters a man is his enemy. He who tells him of his faults is his maker. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you while you live. While it is in your power, be good. Man has it all in his hands and all. And it all slips through his fingers from sheer cowardice. Surplus wealth is a sacred trust, which its possessor is bound to administer in his lifetime for the good of the community. No matter how much suffering you went through, you never did to let go of those memories. In literature, past and love, we are astonished at what is chosen by others. One great love, which happened once in a lifetime, justifies all of those endless bouts of despair to which a person is usually so exposed. Love is a foolish thing done together. It is natural to believe in God when you are alone. Quite alone in the night, thinking about death, unexpected money isn't delight the same. The same sum is a bitterness when you expect more. High feelings are always dumb. What a pity that we don't live long enough to benefit from the lessons of our mistakes. Hope is a passion for the possible. Melancholy is the happiness of being sad. Love never claims it ever gives love ever. Love ever suffers. Never resents. Never revenges itself. Whoever wishes to become a philosopher must learn not to be frightened by absurdities. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The only thing that will help mankind is cooperation. If I cannot swear in heaven, I shall not stay there. The creative writer does the same as the child at play. He creates a world of fantasy, which he takes very seriously. There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. A wise man should not marry because no one can serve books and wife alike. It is better for you to be unhappy right away than being happy without reason. I would rather be a swineherd, understood by the swine, than a poet misunderstood by men. Laws are written for ordinary people, so they must be based on ordinary rules of common sense. It seems that as humanity subjugates nature, man becomes a slave to other people, or else a slave to his own meanness. In matters of conscience, the law of the majority has no place. No one gossips about other people's secret virtues. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Small-minded people blame others. Average people blame themselves though, Why see all blame as foolishness? Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Treat the mind on the present moment. I noticed that autumn is more the season of the soul than of nature. Not always sorry for the one who was wrong, asking forgiveness of the one who values the relations. Fear of women love more than hate the man. Wealth is like seawater. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. And the same is true of fame. The power of man has grown in every sphere, except over himself. The greatest deception men suffer is from their own opinions. It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop. Happiness does not depend on outward things, but on the way we see them. I can see the sun, but even if I cannot see the sun, I know that it exists. And to know that the sun is there, that is living. I have lived a long time, both by the standards of nature and by the standards of fame. That's what the world is. After all, an endless battle of contrasting memories. A successful marriage is an edifice that must be rebuilt every day. Death is so terribly final while life is full of possibilities. The scope of one's personality is defined by the magnitude of that problem which is capable of driving a person out of his wits. Keep your eyes wide open before marriage, half shut afterwards. Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguished one man from another. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. The cleverest of all, in my opinion, is the man who calls himself a fool at least once a month. Unfortunately, the clock is ticking the hours. Are going by the vast increases, the future receipts. Possibilities decreasing. Regrets mounting. You are a little soul carrying a round of quartz. Nobody realizes that some people expand tremendous energy merely to be normal. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. If you wish to be a success in the world, promise everything, deliver nothing. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you mad. Prosperity is the best protector of principle. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. It is difficult to walk at one and the same time. Many paths of life. We crave for new sensations, but soon become indifferent to them. The wonders of yesterday are today common occurrences. If you don't have many friends, that means you have a lot of life experience. Not seeing people permits us to imagine them with every perfection. I object to violence because when it appears to do good, the good is only temporary. The evil that does is permanent. Mankind is made great or little by its own will. If there really is such a thing as turning in one's grave, Shakespeare must be getting a lot of exercise. ardently do today? What must be done? Who knows tomorrow? Death comes. There can be no transforming of darkness into light and of apathy into movement without emotion. People who do not want to feed their army will soon be forced to feed someone else's. The facts of history interest us, not only if they fit into our political convictions. When red-headed people are above a certain social grade, their hair is auburn. The antidotes for 50 enemies is one friend. Never forgive a friend who betrayed you once. He will betray you again. The individual is ephemeral. Races and nations come and pass away. But man remains. We love to criticize so much that we lose the ability to deeply feel a truly beautiful creation. The tyrant dies, and his rule is over. The motto dies, and his rule begins. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was, and never will be. A man is not idle because he is absorbed in thought. There is visible labor and there is invisible labor. You must not lose faith in humanity. Humanity is like an ocean. If a few drops of the ocean are dirty, the ocean does not become dirty. Love and hunger rule the world. Non-violence, which is the quality of the heart, cannot come by an appeal to the brain. Extreme hopes are born from extreme misery. Nothing was your own except the few cubic centimeters inside your skull. It is easy to love your friend. But sometimes the hardest lesson to learn is to love your enemy. No social stability without individual stability. Inaction breeds doubt. In fear, action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views, which others find inadmissible. Lost time is never found again. The changes in our life must come from the impossibility to live otherwise. Otherwise, to the demands of our conscience, not from our mental resolution, to try a new form of life. Love children, especially for they too are sinless, like the angels. They live to soften and purify our hearts. And as it were, to guide us. The meaning of life is that it stops. The whole secret of existence is to have no fear. Never. Never fear what will become of you. Depend on no one, only the moment you reject all help. Are you free? The universal brotherhood of man is our most precious possession. What there is of it. Man has, as it were, become a kind of prosthetic God. No great discovery was ever made without a bold guess. Of all forms of caution, caution in love is perhaps the most fatal to true happiness. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. Truth is ever to be found in the simplicity and not in the multiplicity and confusion of things. What is illness, if not life constrained in its freedom? Everyone is a moon and has a dark side, which he never shows to anybody. To forget is the secret of eternal youth. One grows old only through memory. There's much little forgetting. The human being is the only animal that can laugh, even though he has least occasions for that. The 9 to 5 is one of the greatest atrocities sprung upon mankind. You give your life away to a function that doesn't interest you. But there was no need to be ashamed of tears. For tears bore witness that a man had the greatest of courage, a courage to suffer. Each moment free from fear makes a man immortal. There is only one corner of the universe you can be certain of improving. And that's your own self. To live is to do things, not to acquire them. Grief in the absence of a loved one. His happiness compared to life with a person one hates. I do not take a single paper, nor read one a month. And I feel infinitely happier for it. Prayer is not an old woman's idle amusement, properly understood and applied. It is the most potent instruments of action. Peace is not the absence of war. It is a virtue, a state of mind, a disposition of benevolence, confidence, justice. People write diplomatically. Even in the declaration of war, one observes the rules of politeness. The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time. Not every sweet root gives birth to sweet grass. I believe that a simple and unassuming manner of life is best for everyone best. For both the body and the mind. If your friends ask you to negotiate with your enemy, then the traitors have already agreed behind your back. A woman becomes smarter when she is in love. Whereas a man loses his mind, those who look for the bad in people will surely find it. The only man who never makes mistakes is the man who never does anything. There are two tragedies in life. One is to lose your heart's desire. The other is to gain it. Pain is inevitable. Suffer is optional. I dropped is the water lock filled, likewise the wise man gathering it little by little fills himself with good. Adam and Eve had many advantages, but the principal one was that they escaped teething. Reason is immortal. All else mortal. We are afraid of the old age, which we may never attain. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. The path is the goal. One of the most powerful of all our passions is the desire to be admired and respected. Time stays long enough for anyone who will use it. How much time he gains does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he does himself to make it just and holy. As a rule, men worry more about what they can't see than about what they can. Maturity is the ability to postpone gratification. Worried not that no one knows you seek to be worth knowing. All family life is organized around the most damaged person in it. Develop success from failures. Discouragement and failure are two of the surest stepping stones to success. There are two wolves fighting inside all of us. The first one is evil. The second one is good. Which wolf will win? The one you feed. Experience teaches us that the world is not a nursery. We are born at a given moment in a given place. And like vintage years of wine, we have the qualities of the year and of the season in which we are born. I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought. But World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. If we happen to hear how half a dozen rams scornfully scold an outstanding person, we'll understand that to value the opinion of people highly will be a lot of honor for them. Kites rise highest against the wind, not with it. An intelligent man is sometimes forced to be drunk to spend time with his fools. Only people who are capable of loving strongly can also suffer great sorrow, but this same necessity of loving serves to counteract their grief and heals them. When you arrive in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to. Fools have a habit of believing that everything written by a famous author is admirable for my. I read only to please myself and like only what suits my taste. The attempt to develop a sense of humor and to see things in a humorous light is some kind of a trick learned while mastering the art of living. If you create an act, you create a habit. If you create a habit, you create a character. If you create a character, you. 8. I'm destiny. I realized then that a man who had lived only one day could easily live for 100 years in prison. He would have enough memories to keep him from being bored. We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate. It oppresses. No woman or man really knows what perfect love is until they have been married 1/4 of a century. There are two levers to control people. The first is personal gain, and the second is money. A fool is known by his and a wise man by silence. As I review the events of my past life, I realize how subtle are the influences that shape our destinies. Pride cost us more than hunger, thirst, and cold. No one is forced to enter into marriage, but everyone must be forced to obey the laws of marriage once he has entered into marriage. Never trust Russians, because Russians don't even trust themselves. Life is nothing but a competition to be the criminal rather than the victim. We know that no one ever sees his power with the intention of relinquishing it. The busier we are, the more acutely we feel that we live, the more conscious we are of life. The goal of the writer is to keep civilization from self-destruction. Few things are harder to put up with than the annoyance of a good example. False words are not only evil in themselves, but they infect the soul with evil. We owe to the Middle Ages the two worst inventions of humanity: romantic love and gunpowder. Faith is necessary to men. Woe to him who believes in nothing. Nothing. A rich society must care for the poor. Move not unless you see an advantage. Use not your troops unless there is something to be gained. Fight not unless the position is critical. He who fearfully cares about how not to lose his life will never. Isn't this life? Let none find fault with others' lead. Let none see the omissions and commissions of others. A letter won't see one's own acts, done and undone. After all these years, I see that. I see that I was mistaken about Yeep in the beginning. It is better to live outside the garden with her than inside it without her. One reason why birds and horses are not unhappy is because they are not trying to impress other birds and horses. A lonely person cannot be abandoned. In the end, it is not the years in your life that count, is the life in your years. There is no man living that cannot do more than he thinks he can. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. The strength of a woman lies in the weaknesses of men. I can bear any pain, as long as it has meaning. My treasure lies in my friends. Victory belongs to the most persevering. I like a good story well told. That is the reason I am sometimes forced to tell them myself. For 2 years, a person learns to speak, and then for the rest of his life, he learns to be silent. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Then are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. What distinguishes all love from lust is the fact that it bears an impression of eternity. Love is the foolishness of men and the wisdom of God. You can chain me, you can torture me. You can even destroy this body, but you will never imprison my mind. Stupidity and unconscious bias often do more damage than vanity. If people cannot write well, they cannot think well. And if they cannot think well, others will do their thinking for them. A woman should soften, but not weaken a man. Time will judge us. If men could regard the events of their own lives with more open minds, they would frequently discover that they did not really desire the things they failed to obtain. You who suffer because you love, love more. To die of love is to live by it. From the wine goes in, strange things come out. The only way I can get you to do anything is by giving you what you want. A man is always great in his intentions. However, not in their fulfillment there. In lies his fascination. To succeed, jump as quickly in opportunities as you do at conclusions. Big jobs usually go to the men who prove their ability to outgrow small ones. He knows nothing and he thinks he knows everything. That points clearly to a political career. Note, there is only one quality worse than hardness of heart, and that is softness of head. Man should judge unless he asks himself in absolute honesty, whether in a similar situation, he might not have done the same. It is our attitude toward events, not events themselves, which we can control. Nothing is by its own nature calamitous. Even death is terrible only if we fear it. Men are more easily governed through their vices than through their virtues. Treat your parents as you would like your children to treat you. Death is nothing but to live defeated, and inglorious is to die daily. Admonition instead of hate. Smile. Tempt. There is no such thing as too insane, unless others turn up dead due to your actions. When a man is prey to his emotions, he is not his own master. Reality exists in the human mind, and nowhere else. If you want to change people, why not begin on yourself? That is a lot more profitable, and a lot less dangerous. Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Weak minds discuss people. Educate your children to self-control. Do the habit of holding passion and prejudice and evil tendencies subject to an upright and reasoning will you. And you have done much to abolish misery from their future and crimes from society. Sometimes it's better to tolerate fools. You can learn something worthwhile, but never argue with them. Sometimes you must yield in order to win some. And sometimes maintaining a low place leads you to win. Society of people is not based on love for society, but on the fear of loneliness. There is no conditions to which a person cannot grow accustomed. Especially if he sees that everyone around him lives the same way. Think for yourself and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too. The effectiveness of work increases according to geometric progression. If there are no interruptions, all that we are is the result of our thoughts. I'd rather be myself and nasty, not somebody else. However, jolly. All conditioned things are impermanent when one sees this with wisdom. One turns away from suffering. Anyone who has no need of anybody but himself is either a beast or a god. Trying to forget someone means remembering him all the time. Jack is the knack of making a point without making an enemy. The production of too many useful things results in too many useless people. What has not forbidden is allowed. All the dead were hanged on me, with the exception of the victims of World War II. We all know that light travels faster than sound. That's why certain people appear bright until you hear them speak. He who does not value life does not deserve it. Do right, and you will be conspicuous. Not being heard is no reason for silence. At 20 years of age, the will reigns. At 30, the wit, and at 40, the judgment. First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Nobody can hurt me without my permission. Respect yourself and others will respect you. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. The state needs a very severe education from the people. If the path before you was clear, you're probably on someone else's. There are several good protections against the temptations. But the surest is cowardice. He who wants to hold on to that is losing those who are. Those who are ready to let go with a smile are trying to keep him. A person is lying to you if he says that he is honest with you. Preferred knowledge to wealth for the one is transitory, the other perpetual. The joke loses everything when the joker laughs at himself. Before they die, old people regret 4 things. They gave birth to too few children, worked too hard, traveled too little, communicated too little with friends, children and parents. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Memories warm you up from the inside the veil. But they also tear you apart. Seeking what is true is not seeking what is desirable. Success is the most convincing talker in the world. Life has its own hidden forces, which you can only discover by living. Ordinary men exercise their memory more than their judgments. There are many causes I would die for. There is not a single cause I would kill for. Let's face it, our lives are miserable, laborious and short. Attack is the secret of defense. Defense is the planning of an attack. Contentment makes poor men rich. Discontent. Discontents makes rich men poor. A battle is won by him who is firmly resolved to win it. One great use of words is to hide out thoughts. He who has cognized the fullness of life does not know the fear of death. The fear of death is only the results of an unfulfilled life. It matters not how a man dies, but how he lives. The act of dying is not of importance. It lasts so short of time. It takes much to convince the average man of anything, and perhaps nothing can ever make him realize that he is the average woman's inferior. Everything you do comes back to you. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. The only sure way to avoid making mistakes is to have no new ideas. As a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a life well spent brings happy death. Do you hate people? I don't hate them. I just feel better when they're not around. People speak sometimes about the bestial cruelty of man, but that is terribly unjust and offensive to beasts. No animal could ever be so cruel as a man. so heartfully, so artistically cruel. Men cheats because they don't feel needed. Women because they don't feel loved. Man is an animal that has gone mad. Ways out of this madness. He needs to become an animal again, or to become more than a person. Be careless in your dress if you must. But keep a tidy soul. The great science of living happily is to live only in the present. Happiness is the repression of suffering and anxiety. Women justice becomes low, resistance becomes duty. Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. In all affairs, it's a healthy thing now and then to hang a question mark on the things you have long taken for granted. You have to believe in yourself. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. Boredom is the root of all evil. The despairing refusal to be oneself. Only two things we'll regret on deathbed: that we are a little loved and little traveled. The first person you think of in the morning, and the last person you think at night is either the cause of your happiness or the cause of your pain. Whatever is begun in anger ends in shame. Your life is what your thoughts make it. I don't know where I'm going, but I am on my way. A first sign of the beginning of understanding is the wish to die. Depression is like a woman in black if she turns up. Don't shoo her away. Invite her in. Offer her a seat. Treat her like a guest and listen. And listen to what she wants to say. A person who is captured by his passions cannot be free. How can you do anything until you have seen everything? Or as much as you can? Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Let us sacrifice one day to gain perhaps a whole life. Did you think the lion was sleeping because he didn't roar? What the ancients called the clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Nothing is more imminent than the impossible. What we must always foresee is the unforeseen. He cannot shake hands with a clenched fist. Even if all the experts agree, they may well be mistaken. If you love someone, you loved him. And when you had nothing else to give, you still gave him love. One of the symptoms of an approaching nervous breakdown is the belief that one's work is terribly important. The consequences of every act are included in the act itself. Great results can be achieved with small forces. We are the dead. Our only true life is in the future. Two men looked out for imprisoned bars. One saw the mud. The other saw stars. It is less of a problem to be poor than to be dishonest. Whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried on him personally. I would rather hire a man with enthusiasm than a man who knows everything. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engage in it. Learning without thoughts is labor lost. Thought without learning, it's perilous. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Think how difficult it is to change yourself, and you will understand how insignificant your opportunities are to change others. If you can love someone with your whole heart, even one person, then there's salvation in life. Even if you can't get together with that person, for my part, I think that to a man of spirit, there is no other aim and end of his labors except the labors themselves. Impossible is the word found only in a fool's dictionary? Why is people create opportunities for themselves and make everything possible? The man who was a pessimist before 48 knows too much. If he is an optimist after it, he knows too little. Do not chase after happiness. It is always in you. In conclusion, it appears that nothing can be more improving to a young naturalist than a journey in distant countries. The secret of reaping the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment from life is still dangerously. The more you like yourself, the less you are like anyone else, which makes you unique. You will find the key to success under the alarm clock. Doing what needs to be done may not make you happy, but it will make you great. We do not ask life what the meaning of life is. Life asks us, what is the meaning of your life? And life demands our answer. Great man of meteors designed to burn so that earth may be lighted. Each race determines for itself what indecencies are. Nature knows no indecencies. Man invents them. Hey, it's a waking dream. Excessive courtesy is sometimes no better than rudeness. Far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. The realities of life do not allow themselves to be forgotten. If we are to reach real peace in the world, we shall have to begin with the children. The more sin, the less shame. The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. In various ways, the point. The point, however, is to change it. When I hate, I rob myself of something. But when I love, I become richer by the object I love. Men can only be happy when they do not assume that the object of life is happiness. I am an old man and have known a great many troubles. But most of them never happened. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. When one does not have what one wants, one must want what one has. What your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Actions they become. They become your habits. Watch. What's your habits? They become your character. Watch your character becomes your destiny. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. A clever person solves a problem, a wise person avoids it. If you're going through hell, keep going. Competition is the key cutting edge of business, always shaving away at costs. If then I were asked for the most important advice I could give, that which I considered to be the most useful to the men of our century, I should simply say, in the name of God, stop a woman. Cease your work. Look around you. Patriotism is fundamentally a conviction that a particular country is the best in the world, because you were born in it. Beauty will save the world. I love the trail, but I hate betrayers. I love treason, but not traitors. Many a book is like a key to unknown chambers within the castle of one's own self. My land, they're not making it anymore. We gained by losing by. To find out a girl's faults, praise her to her girlfriends. It is hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. Be careful with who you communicate with. People tend to imitate habits. Those with whom we interact, we inadvertently adopt their interests, their opinions, their values, and their habits interpret events. If most of us remain in the dark about ourselves, it is because self-knowledge is painful, and we prefer pleasant illusions to it. He who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Avoid sex in old age. After it comes to kissing and then talking. You have to make the rules, not follow them. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Language serves not only to express thought, but to make possible thoughts which could not exist without it. Who wishes to fight must first count the cost. Pay no attention to anyone. Do what you think is right. If evil be said of thee, and if it be true, correct thyself, if it be a lie, laugh at it. The world is afflicted by death and decay, but the wise do not grieve. Having realized the nature of the world, the secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age, which means never losing your enthusiasm. Show me a family of readers, and I will show you the people who move the world. Never trust a friend who speaks bad of his comrades. There is nothing more unbearable than idleness. Don't try to cover your mistakes with false words, rather. Correct your mistakes with examination. Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, for heavy ones they cannot. What is youth? A dream. What is love? The dream? The dream's content. Merely quantitative differences beyond a certain point. Past quality of changes. As a child, I pray to God for a bicycle. Then I realized that God works differently. I stole my bike and prayed for forgiveness. I know of no better life purpose than to perish in attempting the great and the impossible. Life really does begin at 40. Up until then, you are just doing research. The bullet changes things in my head, even if it gets in the we chose not randomly each other. We need only those who already exist in our subconscious. You can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. If most of us remain in the dark about ourselves, it is because self-knowledge is painful, and we prefer pleasant delusions to it. He who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Avoid sex in old age. After it comes to kissing and then talking. You have to make the rules, not follow them. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Language serves not only to express thought, but to make possible thoughts which could not exist without it. Who wishes to fight must first count the cost. Pay no attention to anyone. Do what you think is right. If evil be said of thee, and if it be true, correct thyself, if it be a lie, laugh at it. The world is afflicted by death and decay. But the wise do not grieve. Lies the nature of the world. You are not taller than me. You are longer. The secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age, which means never losing your enthusiasm. Show me a family of readers, and I will show you the people who move the world. Never trust a friend who speaks bad of his comrades. Don't try to cover your mistakes with false words. Rather, correct your mistakes with examination. There is nothing more unbearable than idleness. Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, for heavy ones they cannot. What is youth? A dream. What is love? The dream? The dream's content. Merely quantitative differences beyond a certain point pass into qualitative changes. As a child, I pray to God for a bicycle. Then I realized that God works differently. I stole my bike and prayed for forgiveness. I know of no better life purpose than to perish in attempting the great and the impossible. Life really does begin at 40, up until then. You are just doing research. The bullet changes things in my head, even if it gets in the we chose not randomly each other. We need only those who already exist in our subconscious. You can fool some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time. But you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. The most painful thing is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much and forgetting that you are special too. Do not do unto others as you would that they should do unto you. Their tastes may not be the same. People willingly believe what they want to believe. People are what you make them. A scorn. A scornful look turns into a complete fool. A man of average intelligence, a contemptuous indifference, turns into an enemy. A woman who, well treated, might have been an angel. If one does not understand a person, one tends to regard him as a fool. I'll say, how hard is it that we have to die? A strange complaint coming from the mouths of people who have had to live. All you need in this life is ignorance and confidence. Then success is sure. A thought, even a possibility, can shatter and transform us. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. All the adversity I've had in my life, all my troubles and obstacles, have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time. For that's the stuff life is made of. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again. This time, more intelligently. Momentum mori. Remember death. These are important words. If we kept in mind that we will soon inevitably die, our lives would be completely different. Sarcasm, the last refuge of modest and chaste-souled people. When the privacy of their soul is coarsely and intrusively invaded, if someone wants to humiliate you, then you are on the right track. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you. And you will call it fate. There are no people who are quite so vulgar as the over-refined ones. 10 people who speak make more noise than 10,000 who are silent. Whatever they think of you, do what you think is fair. Man, in his arrogance, thinks himself a great work, worthy of the interposition of a deity or humble. And I believe truer to consider him created from animals. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Do compel a man to furnish funds for the propagation of ideas. He disbelieves and abhors his sinful and tyrannical. The individual violinist manages himself. The orchestra needs a conductor. Fearlessness is the first requisite of spirituality. Cowards can never be moral. If someone asks me why there is no religion in my heart, I will answer that I have lost it through the fault of religion itself. Self-preservation is the primary and only foundation of virtue. Even the finest sword, plunged to due salt water, will eventually rust. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. If a person fights the clear evidence of his senses, he will never be able to share in genuine tranquility. Nothing gives more advantages over others than the ability to remain calm and cool in any situation. While the gods remained more human, the men were more divine. It's a beautiful thing. The destruction of words. If I am killed, I can die but once. But to live in constant dread of it is to die over and over again. There is nothing noble than being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. The only shame is the shame of not doing it well. He who has lost all hope has also lost all fear. Is a man who thinks everybody is as nasty as himself and hates them for it. When you look at the sea for a long time, you start to miss people and when you look at people for a long time, you start to miss the sea. Nights through dreams till the myths forgotten by the day. There are not enough morally brave men in stock. We are out of moral courage material. People are like dirt. They can either nourish you and help you grow as a person, or they can stunt your growth and make you wilt and die. It is better for you to be free of fear, lying upon a pallet. Then you have a golden couch and a rich table, and be full of trouble. I have no ambition to government. It is a painful and thankless office. Truth is one. Paths are many. The world is small, but the human brain is immense. I call him freedom, who was led solely by reason. Much unhappiness has come from things left unsaid. The comfort of the rich depends upon an abundant supply of the poor. Life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or quest for power, as Alfred Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. Nature hath given men one tongue but 2 ears, that we may hear from others twice as much as we speak. Gloves make the man naked. People have little or no influence in society. Our brain has very sensitive nerve cells, which allow us to feel the truth even when it is not yet available. He who was highly esteemed is not easily conspired against. For the selfish spirit of commerce, there is no homeland, no feelings, no principles, only profit. Wherever you are, will always be in my heart. Do not lend money to relatives, because you will lose both. Ultimate excellence lies not in winning every battle, but in defeating the enemy without ever fighting. Love is the only thing in nature where even the power of the imagination does not find a bottom and does not see a limit. The fundamental cause of the trouble is that, in the modern world, the stupid are cocksure, while the intelligents are full of doubt. Remember, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. There is no misfortune greater than being covetous. Hundreds of objects that give people pleasure are boring for a big mind. The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. Too often, the people complain that they have done nothing with their lives, and then they wait for somebody to tell them that this isn't so to succeed in the world. It is not enough to be stupid. One must be polite. We are not rich by what we possess but by what we can do without. All experiences are preceded by mind, having mind as their master created. By mind, I start out by believing the worst. If history were thought in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. I know does not hide anything, but a yes very easily becomes a deception. Communism is the riddle of history, salt, and it knows itself to be this solution. A whole powerful souls have kindred with each other. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one mind simultaneously, and accepting both of them. All the war propaganda, all the screaming and lies and hatred, comes invariably from people who are not fighting. Thus, the expert in battle moves the enemy and is not moved by him. Noise proves nothing. Often a hen who has laid an egg tackles as if she had laid an asteroid. Do the hard jobs first. The easy jobs will take care of themselves. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Having been poor is no shame, but being ashamed of it is. Both optimists and pessimists contribute to society. The optimist invents the airplane, the pessimist, the parachute. In this world, there are things you can only do alone, and things you can only do with somebody else. It's important to combine the two in just the right amount. There are many teachings in the world, but no teachings will help one who is shackled himself. The surest way to remain poor is to be honest. Who builds on the people builds on the mud. There is no such thing as chance. And what seems to us more accident springs from the deepest source of destiny. Move swift as the wind and closely formed as the wood, attack like a fire and be still as the mountain. The weakness of the enemy makes our strength. Being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. Modesty and conscientiousness receive their reward only in novels and life. In life, they are exploited and then shall decide. Dare to know, have the courage to use your own intelligence. We are all geniuses up to the age of 10. Those who know. Do those that understand teach? It is the power of steady misrepresentation. A man may imagine things that are false, but he can only understand things that are true. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The voice of the majority is no proof of justice. A company wanted booze, and I organized it. Why should I be called a public enemy? Most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's opinions. Their lives don't mimicry. Their passions of quotation. Women are traps which lie in wait for men everywhere, in order to drag them down into the finite. Give a man power, and you will find out who he is. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim. A one-year man is much more incomplete than a blind man. For he knows what it is that's lacking. It is curious how people take it for granted that they have a right to preach at you and pray over you as soon as your income falls below a certain level. The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. Our fatigue is often caused, not by work, but by worry, frustration, and resentment. Is a preparation for the future. And the best preparation for the future is to live as if there were none. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80, anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. It takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently. A profession should initially be an act of love, and not a marriage of convenience. A person is made a person to a greater extent by what he is silent about and what he says. Every man's memory is his private literature. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. Man selects only for his own good nature. Only for that of the being which he tends. I opened my eyes and saw the real world. And I began to laugh, and I haven't stopped since. If you are bored alone with yourself, it means that you are in a bad society. The attitude of the state towards the teacher is a stake policy that testifies either to the strength of the state or to its weakness. A man is obliged to cry only in one case, from happiness. The best books are those that tell you what you know already. Giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I know. I know, because I've done it thousands of times. The Iron Man is distinguished from the lower by his fearlessness and his readiness to challenge misfortune. Life's biggest tragedy is that we get old too soon and wise too late. Courage is resistance to fear, master. Fear not absence of fear. Whatever you do, do it well. I choose my friends for their good looks, my acquaintances for their good characters, and my enemies for their good intellects. He who tells him of his faults is his maker. I think the devil doesn't exist. But man has created him. He has created him in his own image and likeness. Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it. The only things that matter are humanity and simplicity. Always acknowledge fault. Frankly, this will throw those in authority off guard and give you an opportunity to make a choice. Let no one persuade you by word or deed to do or say whatever is not best for you. There is nothing terrible in life for someone who truly understands that there is nothing terrible in non-life. To myself, I am only a child playing on the beach, while vast oceans of truth lie undiscovered before me. Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president. If you have an apple and I have an apple, and we exchange these apples, then you and I will still each have one apple. But if you have an idea, and I have an idea, and we exchange these ideas, then U.S. will have two ideas. So live if you were living already for the second time. And as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now. If you punish a child for what is bad and reward for what is good, then he will do good for the sake of profit. Life does not need to be given meaning. For this will inevitably lead to the conclusion that there is no need to live. How wonderful, interesting, original people are from a distance. The only thing you will regret in old age is not doing it. Experience is valuable only when it has brought suffering and when the suffering has left its mark upon both body and mind. To learn to read is to light a fire. Every syllable that is spelled out is a spark. Politics is the art of the possible, the obtainable. The art of the next best. Philosophy from the earliest times has made greater claims and achieved fewer results than any other branch of learning. The creatures outside looked from pig to man and from men to pig and from big to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night. And when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. There is nothing more tiring than to attend how a person demonstrates his mind in particular, if there is no mind, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. If you want to keep happiness, you have to share it. Success is as dangerous as failure. Hope. Is this hollow as fear? If a man empties his purse into his head, no one can take it from him. With self-discipline, almost anything is possible. As I grow older, I pay less attention to what people say. I just watch what they do. If men could regard the events of their own lives with more open minds, they would frequently discover that they did not really desire the things they failed to obtain. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Seek wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is of the past. Wisdom is of the future. Ordinary bridges can be stolen. Real riches cannot in your soul are infinitely precious things that cannot be taken from you. Some people like what you do. Some people hate what you do. But most people simply don't give a damn. My dream sometimes. I think that's the only right thing to do. Those who write clearly have readers. Those who write vaguely have commentators. I wanted to change the world, but I have found that the only thing one can be sure of changing is oneself. Usually the soldiers win the battle, and the general gets the honors. A man can never have too much red wine, too many books or too much ammunition. The most important consequence of self-sufficiency is freedom. Gravity explains the motions of the planets, but it cannot explain who sets the planets in motion. Go on, get out last. Last words offer fools who haven't said enough. Honest differences are often a healthy sign of progress. The intention that a man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where. Knowledge isn't power until it's applied. Everyone falls down. Hitting back up is how you learn how to walk. Here is a rule to remember in future. When anything tempts you to feel bitter, not. This is misfortune, but to bear this worthily is good fortune. Life is a shipwreck, but we must not forget to sing in the lifeboats. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. Let us conduct ourselves so that all men wish to be our friends and all fear to be our enemies. Loyalty to country, always loyalty to government when it deserves it. The healthy man does not torture others. Generally, it is the tortured who turn into torturers. Tact is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip. A man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. The non-existent is whatever we have not sufficiently desired. The world is very lovely, and it's very horrible. And it doesn't care about your life or mine or anything else. Once you label me, you negate me. To be radical is to go to the root of the matter. For man, however, the root is man himself. Dogmatism is the greatest of mental obstacles to human happiness. There are things known, and there are things unknown. And in between, other doors of perception. Love in the form of longing and deprivation. So regard. A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. Old age is, far more than white hair, wrinkles, a feeling that it is too late. And the game is finished. But the stage belongs to the rising generations. The true evil is not the weakening of the body, but the indifference of the soul. The advantage of a bad memory is that one enjoys several times the same good things for the first time. Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. I never worry about action, but only inaction. Don't let us forget that the causes of human actions are usually immeasurably more complex and varied than our subsequent explanations of them. If there is meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning and suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death without. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete. Know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. Imagination governs the world. Dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in the consciousness that we deserve them. Sympathy for someone else's joy is a much rarer gift than sympathy for someone else's suffering. The only intelligent tactical response to life's horror is to laugh defiantly at it. Diamonds are to be found only in the darkness of the earth. And truth. And truth in the darkness of the mind. If I had no sense of humor, I would long ago have committed suicide. A conquering army on the border will not be stopped by eloquence. Few people can be happy unless they hate some other person, nation, or creed. God has no religion. It is a ring that makes a marriage, and it is. And it is from rings that chains are made. More is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Nothing is sufficient for the person who finds sufficiency too little. When the arguments end, the guns begin to speak. Strength is the last argument of a dullard. If you have reason to suspect that a person is telling you a lie, look as though you believed every word he said. This will give him courage to go on. He will become vehement in his assertion, and in the end, betray himself. He who wishes to be rich in a day will be hanged in a year. Humans have come into being for the sake of each other. So either teach them or learn to bear them. I have the true feeling of myself only. And I'm unbearably unhappy. Act as if you were already happy, and that will tend to make you happy. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Love is all right for those who can handle the psychic overload. It's like trying to carry a full garbage can on your back over a rushing river of modesty and unselfishness. These are the virtues which men praise and pass by. In politics, stupidity is not a handicap. The only way to keep your health is to eat what you don't want, drink what you don't like, and do what you'd rather not. You can't chase after money. You need to go towards them. Intelligence is based on how efficient a species becomes at doing the things they need to survive. Faith begins precisely where thinking leaves off. Moments saw the elements of profit. Too much will perform little. Our pleasures are shallow. Our sorrows are deep. Never memorize something that you can look up. Example isn't another way to teach. It is the only way to teach. Honesty first, then courage, then brains and all. And all three are indispensable. A person is worth something only when he has his own point of view. I think we ought to read only the kind of books that wound and stab us. Where there is no hope, it is incumbent on us to invent it. You can't reason with your heart. It has its own laws and thumbs about things which the intellect scorns. Salt is born of the purest parents. The sun and the sea. Happiness is never there to stay happy. Happiness is merely a respite offered by inquietude. Common sense is in spite of not the result of education. Education, the strong are always right. To be happy, we must not be too concerned with others. Words are good servants, but bad masters. Great men on meteors designed to burn so that Earth may be lighted. We have 14 million reasons for failure, but not a single excuse. Never was anything great achieved without danger. Banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. A coward is incapable of exhibiting love. It is the prerogative of the brave. Voice should be weighed, not counted. Ponder and deliberate before you make a move. Eat a live frog, first thing in the morning, and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. He who is satisfied with his lot is rich. The most important days in your life are the day you were born, and the day you find out why. There is nothing as eloquent as a rattlesnake's tail. Midlife is the time to let go of an overdominant ego and to contemplate the deeper significance of human existence. It's strange to be known so universally, and yet be so lonely. As soon as laws are necessary for men, they are no longer fit for freedom. Taking crazy things seriously is a serious waste of time. The most important thing is not the big one that others have thought of the little, but the little thing that you yourself came to. To give out someone else's secret is a betrayal. To give out yours is stupidity. Capital is dead labor, which vampire alike lives only by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. Do what you can with what you have where you are. In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the first thing you can do is nothing. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. The best portion of a good man's life is little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. Death never takes a wise man by surprise. If he is always ready to go, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart looks. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside? Oh, Wicks. Happiness belongs to the self-sufficient. When I was young, I thought that money was the most important thing in life. Now that I'm old, I know that it is. A happy marriage is a long conversation, which always seems to shorten. The bird who has eaten cannot fly with the bird that is hungry. Every human life contains a potential. If that potential is not fulfilled, then that life was wasted. Crying is for plain women. Pretty women go shopping. How can one be well when one suffers morally? No one is brave enough not to be afraid of the unexpected. Has for limit to one's labors. I for one, do not recognize any for a high-minded man, except at the labors themselves should lead to noble accomplishments. What is the government's nothing, unless supported by opinion? The noblest form of fear known to people is fear for the fate of another. Modesty and unselfishness of the choose, which men praise and pass by. Religion is the opium of the people. It is the destiny of the weak to be devoured by the strong. He who does not like loneliness will never get freedom. We are masters of the unset words, but slaves of those we let slip out. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Power is given only to him who dares to stoop and take it. One must have the courage to dare. Every act you have ever performed since the day you were born was performed because you wanted something. Paths are made by walking. He is unrealistic to expect people to see you as you see yourself. Reason is powerless before the cry of the heart. Give me enough medals, and I'll win you any war. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. Then we'll not look at things as they really are, but as they wish them to be. And are ruined. Tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government, but illegal for the citizenry. Everyone around you will appreciate you if your words match your actions. Sin is geographical. A poor man is better than a rich man because has a clear conscience. Power isn't tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. The ability to deal with people is as purchasable a commodity as sugar or coffee. And I will. And I will pay more for that ability than for any other under the sun. Life does not cease to be funny when people die any more than it ceases to be serious when people laugh. Be more concerned with your character than with your reputation. For your character is what you are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Fan is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask, and he will tell you the truth. Feeling sorry for yourself and your present condition. He's not only a waste of energy, but the worst habit you could possibly have. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. Do you want your last word in an argument? Tell your opponent, perhaps you are right. Government is an association of men who do violence to the rest of us. Love truth, but pardon error. Error. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Never attempt to win by force. What can be won by deception? An enemy generally says and believes what he wishes. The simplest acts of kindness are by far more powerful than 1,000 heads bowing in prayer. Love gives forever, selfishness gives only in debt. When the enemy's relaxed, make them toil; when full, starve them; when settled, make them move. Sometimes you climb out of bed in the morning, and you think, I'm not going to make it. But you laugh inside, remembering all the times you felt that way. Books are a narcotic. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. He that lies down with dogs shall rise up with fleas. The truth must be served like a coat and not thrown in the face like a wet towel. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. The only good is knowledge. The only evil is ignorance. The secret to success is to do the common things uncommonly well. A person's worth is measured by the worth of what he values. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. It is more polite to talk about sex than to be embarrassed to talk about God. Music is what tells us that the human race is greater than we realize. How much we suffered because of what did not happen, but could only happen. Yes, I am. I am also a Muslim, a Christian, a Buddhist, and Jew. The hardest thing in life is to know which bridge to cross and which to burn. If you make a mistake and do not correct it, this is called a mistake. I have never made but one prayer to God, a very short one. Oh, Lord, make my enemies ridiculous. And God granted it. A thing that carries a certain imperfection in itself attracts precisely its imperfection. Is the most peculiar and most human of all expressions? There are certain persons for whom pure truth is a poison. Reason is intelligence taking exercise. Imagination is intelligence with an erection. Whenever you are confronted with an opponent, conquer him with love. Truth exists for the wise, beauty for the feeling heart. If both the past and the external world exist only in the mind, and if the mind itself is controllable, what then? A disciplined mind brings happiness. Do not envy other people's good qualities, but instill them in yourself through admiration. Conquer anger with non-anger back. Conquer badness with goodness. Conquer meanness with generosity. Conquer dishonesty with truth. Words can be like X-rays, if you use them properly. They'll go through anything. You read and you're pierced. The world suffers a lot, not because violence of bad people but because of the silence of the good people. There are only 3 events in a man's life: birth, life, and death. He is not conscious of being born. He dies in pain, and he forgets to live. Take away the paradox from the finger, and you have a professor. The most valuable of all talents is that of never using 2 words when one will do. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into 2 great hostile camps. On the mountains, there is freedom. The world is perfect everywhere. Save. Where man comes with his torment. It is easier to find such people who voluntarily go to death than those who endure pain patiently. All the interests of my reason speculative, as well as practical, combined in 3 following questions. 1. What can I know? 2. I to do. 3. What may I hope? There is no love of life without despair about life. You can forgive a person everything except absence. Success is the most convincing talker in the world. Human behavior flows from 3 main sources: desire, emotion, acknowledge. The art of living well and the art of dying well are one. Be careful about reading health books. You may die of a misprint. No man is good enough to govern another man without the other's consent. Upon meeting, you're judged by your clothes. Upon parting, you're judged by your wits. The soul is healed by being with children. Errors are punctuation marks of life, without which, as in the text, there will be no meaning. To persuade a man to cheat is enough. Is enough to marry him? You could make a stop during the ascent, but not bearing the descent. I start out by believing the worst. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. It is reasonable that everyone who asks justice should do justice. What barrier is there that love cannot break? He alone is free who lives with free consent under the entire guidance of reason. What is the strongest force the world possesses? And yet it is the humblest imaginable. We love our habits more than our income, often more than our life. Be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby, you can be the director of the opponent's fate. A person can become close to you in 3 days, and the one who lives near you for years may never. What your favorite color is. Every man should ask himself each day, whether he is not too readily accepting negative solutions. Ultimately, it is the desire, not the desired, that we love. What you can't get always seems better than what you have is. Includes the romance and idiocy of human life. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first hour sharpening the axe. The discontented man finds no easy chair. The genius of the American people is self-reliance. Be bad, but at least don't be a liar. A deceiver. The most tragic thing in the world is a man of genius who was not a man of honor. If you must break the law, do it to seize power, and all other cases of deserve it. Rules for happiness. Something to do. Something to do, someone to love, something to hope for. There is no sun without shadow. And it is essential to know the night. I can be either a fox or lion. The whole secret of management is knowing when to be one or the other. The reason most people fail instead of succeed is they trade what they want most for what they want at the moment. A bad friend is like a shadow on a sunny day. Run, you won't run away on a cloudy day. Look for it. You won't find it. And I will only make the whole world blind. No one can ride on the back of a man unless it is bent. The mind of God is all the mentality that is scattered over space and time. The diffused consciousness that animates the world. No man can escape his destiny the next. The next in inquiry being how he may best live the time that he has to live. I would like to be distinguished, not by power, but by the knowledge of what is beautiful. Never put off till tomorrow. The fun you can have today. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was. It was the greatest before there was any civilization. The great mysteries of our existence have yet to be solved. Even death may not be the end. I'm a greater believer in luck, and I find the harder I work the more I have of it. Silence becomes cowardice. When occasion demands speaking out the whole truth and acting accordingly, to be without some of the things you want, is an indispensable part of happiness. Don't be afraid of enemies who attack you. Be afraid of the friends who flatter you. History is just new people making old mistakes. I know you won't believe me, but the highest form of human excellence is to question oneself and others. Where were you little bit every day? And in a lifetime, you will lose a couple of years if something is wrong, fix it if you can. But train yourself not to worry. Never fixes anything. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Our wretched species is so made that those who walk on the well-trodden path always throw stones at those who are showing a new road. Character is the ability to act according to principles. The world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of the good people. Some people lie when they tell the truth. I tell the truth, lying. Blow from your friend is better than a kiss from your enemy. Leave that self. That one is. It is not the consciousness of men that determines their being, but on the contrary, their social being that determines their consciousness. Only a fool learns from his own mistakes. The wise man learns from the mistakes of others. What Paul says about Peter tells us more about Paul than about Peter. Some ideas are so stupid that only intellectuals believe them. Personally, I am very fond of strawberries and cream. But I have found that for some strange reason, fish prefer worms. So when I went fishing, I didn't think about what I wanted. I thought about what fish wanted. It's a mistake not to give people a chance to learn to depend on themselves while they are young. If a man is as wise as a serpent, he can afford to be as harmless as a dove. He who writes carelessly confesses thereby at the very outset. But he does not attach much importance to his own thoughts. To love is to suffer, and there can be no love otherwise. A woman who saves money on herself makes men want to save money on her. Men marry because they are tired. Women because they are curious. Both are disappointed. To say that you can love one person all your life is just like saying that one candle who continue burning as long as you live. The greatest enemy lurks where you least search for it. In the end, when it's over, all that matters is what you've done. We have permanent habits until we are 40, then they begin to harden presently. Presently, they petrify then. Business begins. Drunkenness is an exercise in madness. Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press. And that cannot be limited without being lost. Of there is life. Death is not too high a price for this. His taste of heaven. A happy life must be to a great extent a quiet life. For it is only in an atmosphere of quiet that true joy